All right, today was our first full day of exploring Israel, and on this day, on Monday, uh, May the 28th of 2018, we visited Caesarea Maritima. That city may not sound familiar to you, but I'm going to talk about that. We visited Mount Carmel. We saw the Jezreel Valley. I've got a video of that I'll show you in just a second. We visited Nazareth, where Jesus spent much of his time as a child. And as a teenager, at least we assume that he did. Um, Unsure of when he moved from Bethlehem. His parents moved him from Bethlehem to Nazareth. But also we drove through Cana, where Jesus performed the first miracle of turning the water to wine. And then we checked in to our hotel on the Sea of Galilee. And in fact, this picture that you're looking at right now is at one of the entrances to the main lobby where we ate some of our meals. And this was right outside of one of the main entrances, and the Sea of Galilee is in the background. It's a little bit hazy, but I'm telling you, it was surreal seeing this whenever we visited. So let's go on and get into it, and I'll show you some things and share some insights along the way. The first place that we went to as we left Tel Aviv and began our actual journey of visiting some pretty cool sites is we drove north to Caesarea Maritima. Now, I snagged this map from Google Maps, and this was not the amount of time that it took us. I'm not sure how long it took us. I just snagged it and just wanted to show a line from where we started at the hotel, at the Tau Hotel, and where we ended up at the Caesarea National Park. So you could see that we were following along the coastline. I'm guessing, we were anywhere from half a mile to maybe a couple of miles at the most away from the sea as we were traveling north. And it looks like it was 54 kilometers. So if you were to do the math, it's however many miles for those of us in the United States that use that. This is in Caesarea Maritima, and this amphitheater was built by Herod the Great in 25 BC. That was crazy. I mean, we were looking at an amphitheater that was over 2,000 years old. And it was actually built at the founding of this city by the sea. And in fact, I was up on the stage as I took this picture. If I was to go like 90 degrees to the left, you would be able to see the Mediterranean Sea right behind the stage. If I remember correctly, maybe 50 yards behind the stage or something like that. And in fact, the Herod that built this was the Herod that tried to kill Jesus soon after Jesus was born in Bethlehem. One of the things that we heard is that Herod wanted to be in good standing with the Caesars, and so he built Caesarea Maritima and then Caesarea Philippi, and I think there was another place that he built. He was just trying to name it after the title of the Caesar to get his attention and get his affirmation. So this was the amphitheater. I'll show you another picture of it. It's just crazy. I mean, these rock formations were put here over 2,000 years ago. That was just crazy that we were walking on history, something that old. It was crazy. And by the way, in 1961, here in this place, actually behind the stage, and I'm going to show you a video on this amphitheater here in just a few moments. But there was a stone that was found in the rubble near the stairway that led up to the stage in 1961. And so what, 62 years ago, something like that. It had a name on it that Bible readers are very familiar with. It was a stone that had a Bible. It had a name on it that you would be familiar with. And it's the name Pontius Pilate. It was found here in Caesarea Maritima, Caesarea by the sea. And in fact, it's called the Pilate Stone. Pilate, the Pilate stone. In fact, you could Google that and get some information on it. And as far as I know, it's the only archaeological artifact that has been discovered to this point that speaks of Pontius Pilate, the one who was in leadership in Jerusalem when Jesus was crucified. The stone does not mention Jesus. It does state Pontius Pilate, one of the main characters of the crucifixion story. And so we have that here. And again, I just want to say that when stuff like this is found, we don't say this proves the Bible. If you're a Bible believer, you automatically say, well, the Bible is true. I mean, I need to rightly understand it, but the Bible is true. So what we would say about this archaeological discovery is that it simply backs up the Bible. But we already believe that the Bible is true. We already believe that Pilate exists because the Bible tells us so. But it's pretty incredible, whenever things are dug up that just continue to validate the story that we already believe is true. Okay, so here is a video that I took on the stage here in Maritima, Caesarea Maritima. I'll play it for you. And the Mediterranean is to the right behind that black screen. And from what I've heard, they have some, concerts here every now and then. I think even some American artists go over there and perform here in this place. I can only imagine with, the rocks and what the acoustics may be there in that place, especially if the screen is down with the sea behind them. Here, Kim is standing by a Corinthian. It's called a capital. It's what goes on the top of a pillar. It's a Corinthian capital. It's just one of the thousands of 2,000 or so year-old relics that are on display in Israel. And again, I mean, it's just cool to be in a place where you can touch things that were created about 2,000 years or so ago. I just took a little bit closer of a picture. This Corinthian capital had a cross on it, so it was created after Jesus walked the earth. I heard that there was, I can't remember what the other sign would have been that could have been before Christ, but the fact that it had a cross on it pretty much meant that it was created, it was formed after Jesus walked the earth. This is the Herod's palace and the Roman Praetorium. This is what it would have looked like. If you look at this, the stage and the amphitheater that we were just in, it would be about where this picture is taken from, if you could just imagine. If you look at, the building, it kind of protrudes out into the Mediterranean Sea, which I'm going to show you the remains of it here in just a few moments. And if you look beyond the building, then that's called the Hippodrome. And I'm going to show you a picture and a video of that. And that's where, if you've ever watched Ben-Hur and you saw the chariot race, they would have been racing in what is called a hippodrome. They would have been racing around a center part with rock seating around there. But this is what Herod's palace would have almost certainly looked like. And this is what is left of it now. This place has experienced a lot of natural calamity. There's been a tsunami. I can't remember what year it came in. There have been earthquakes and I think a fire, but that's all that's left. Actually, the tsunami was in 115 AD. So that happened, and then there were other things. But so this city has been built a time or two, but then eventually they just abandoned it and let it go. This, I think, was a pool that was a part of the palace, but now you see the sea is just claiming it. Below us in the center of this picture, if you look at the very bottom center, you can see some tile. Those are mosaic tiles. Those are probably a couple thousand years old, maybe 1,500 years old, something like that. And just throughout our trip in Israel, we were constantly walking on things that were that old. And I was thinking, wow, over here in America, that would have been preserved. It would have been glassed in, or, a fence put up around it or something. But these fishermen that are right above my head, right up there, they just walked across it. So things are being preserved, but probably being a little bit prematurely worn down over the years because of just how it's probably not protected as much as I think it probably should. Okay, so this is the Hippodrome. You remember the picture that we saw a while ago with the palace? The behind us, if you imagine that you were the one taking this picture, the amphitheater is directly behind us. The palace is behind us and to our left, and this is the Hippodrome. That's the Mediterranean Sea to the left. The stands are on the right, and in the center of this would have been, rocks or whatever else that would have been something that the horses and chariots would have raced around. Here's a video, and if you could imagine just being in this place where you were watching a horse race and chariots, and hearing the thunderous horse hooves and the whips cracking, and maybe every now and then, I mean, that's what the Romans did, is they watched, and sometimes they would probably, because some of them were bloodthirsty. I mean, they would watch the gladiator games and things like that, but sometimes the chariots would topple over and someone could be run over here as the horses and chariots were coming around the turn. But this is where that would have taken place. And I mean, I can only imagine the breathtaking view of this with the Mediterranean behind this.
This is Caesarea Maritima. This is where Cornelius lived. It's where Peter had his vision of a blanket coming down. And this is the Hippodrome, where we would have horse races. And that's our group.
So yeah, as I mentioned in the video, Cornelius lived here in this place. If you want to read about Cornelius, just read Acts chapter 10. He was a Roman centurion that heard that Peter was down in Joppa, which is down on the southern end of Tel Aviv. So it was the trip that we took from Tel Aviv up here. Cornelius would have sent somebody down that way to go get Peter and to bring him back. And this is where Peter shared the message of the gospel, and Cornelius, a Gentile, he and his house were saved. And this is the city where that happened. And so now we come up next to the Hippodrome. The seats are behind us. This is over toward the far end of the Hippodrome. And this is just buildup of tons of rock and sand and everything else. And what our tour guide said, Mika, she's the one in the middle with the blue shirt and sunglasses, she said that erosion constantly is happening, as there's rain or whatever else. Erosion is happening, and every now and then an artifact in places like this will be exposed, and if not discovered as erosion is happening, then it'll drop to the ground, and you can see artifacts that are from thousands of years ago that are in that. So now we come to this archaeology, this structure was not. And it didn't look like this when Herod built this city. This is actually Crusaders who built this. Crusaders came in and fortified this city in the mid-1200s, and so this is what the Crusaders did. If you're familiar with the history of the Holy Land, there were times when there was a time when the Turks came in. There were the battle with the Muslims and the Christians, over this land. And so there was just a lot of crusades over the period of a few hundred years. And so it's thought that in the 1200s, maybe the mid 1200s, this place was fortified by the Christian crusaders. This was thought to be Herod's temple, but it's now thought to be what's called a nymphium. I think that's how you say it, a nymphium. This is where citizens of this city, under Herod, as he had this built, they would come to get their drinking water and then congregate to enjoy some time with other citizens in the community. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that our tour guide said that this place was being reconstructed. And so I'm not sure what this looks like now. 5 years ago, in 2018, this is what it looked like. As we were continuing to move along in Caesarea Maritima, just walking, exploring this area, we saw this, and this is just one of the many archaeological dig sites everywhere in Israel. There's thousands of years of history under so much of the land, and constantly you can look around and see people digging and looking under. I just took this because this is one of the plaques, one of the many plaques. This place is built for tourism. There is the knowledge that lots of Christians will come over, and so they have really thought this thing through with not only Caesarea Maritima, but many other places, and they've got plaques so that you can read and try to, discover what happened in some of these sites. This plaque informs the reader about a bit of the history of the fortification walls that were built by the Crusaders, and so it talks about that. Here's some of the architecture. As we continue to walk, we're still in Caesarea Maritima. This is some of the architecture that was left from the 1200s when the Crusaders left their mark on this place. This is the architecture of the Crusaders. Herod didn't build this. This wasn't the design of first century BC or AD. This was from the 1200s, and so clearly the Crusaders have left their mark on many of these places. This is one of the best preserved sites of the Crusaders' work around an area that they fortified. I would imagine that water from the sea would have been dug out and allowed to come in so that it would provide a moat and place to do battle, something Jesus never called us to do. Okay, so we continued our trek north from Caesarea Maritima. So we went north from Caesarea Maritima. We drove up along the highway parallel to the Mediterranean Sea. We kept going north, not too far this time. And in this picture, I'm looking out of the bus window to my right. So we're going, if I took the picture, we would have been moving to my left, right? So I turned to my right and I looked out my window. If I'd looked the other way, see the Mediterranean Sea. But out this way, I looked to my right because that is the Mount Carmel mountain range. It was on this range somewhere that Elijah defeated hundreds of prophets of Baal, and you can read in 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 through 46 about that story. So there's actually the map from Caesarea. You see the blue line, Caesarea, and we headed north, and then we went inland a little bit. One of the things about Mount Carmel, one of the things about the story is I believe it was after Elijah defeated the prophets of Baal. I think it was after that. I should have read on this so that I would be able to give you the exact information, that he was up on the mountain and it had not rained for 3.5 years. And so he told his servant to go look out toward the sea. And finally, the servant came back and said, "Hey, I see the cloud the size of a hand." And so Elijah said, "You know what, get out of here because it's about to come a gully washer." And so Mount Carmel was close enough to the sea that he was able to look out and see the sea. So that's that. Let's move on. Here is a statue that greets the visitor as we were about to go up to the top of a Catholic monastery on Mount Carmel. Of course, walking through a gift shop to get a view of the Mount Carmel mountain range and the valley of Jezreel on the other side. So this is, the site that has been designated as the Mount Carmel where this happened. Now, we're not sure. We're not sure where this happened. We're not given overly specific information in the Bible. We're just told it happened on Mount Carmel. And as I showed you a picture a while ago, Mount Carmel is a mountain range. So it could have happened here. It could have happened somewhere else, but it couldn't have happened too far away from here. So here is what it looks like from on top of the mountain range. Now behind us is the Mediterranean Sea. I'm looking inland from here, and that is the Jezreel Valley. Like I said, behind me to the west is the Mediterranean Sea, but looking to the east, we got this view of the Jezreel Valley. And among other things, this is where the Battle of Armageddon will be fought, according to Revelation chapter 16 and chapter 19. It is flat. This whole Jezreel Valley is flat. And so this is part of it. And this thing is not just this area. The Jezreel Valley goes on for quite a while. But this is the Jezreel Valley. So I also took a video. I liked taking videos because they bring things to life a little bit more than just pictures. And so this is a video I took of the Jezreel Valley on top of Mount Carmel. And by the way, that lady in the red blouse, she's pretty good looking, I think. Love spending this time with Kim. We were up on top of a monastery. Okay, so just a short little video just to show you Mount Carmel Range. The sea is to the right. In fact, I think that there was quite a few trees to my right, so I couldn't see the sea from where I was standing. But it is to the right, and Jezreel Valley is now to the left. So now we went from Mount Carmel and we were headed to Nazareth. Now, I'm not sure which of these two routes we took, but we went to Nazareth, the place where Jesus lived as a child until his ministry began. Now, Nazareth is primarily a Muslim city. We were treated with kindness there. There were some I can't remember the exact percentage, but the percentage of Christians and Jews is going way down to where I think it's in the single digits, and Muslims are upwards of 80, 75, 85%, something like that. But again, to me, it felt completely safe here. It didn't feel dangerous at all. In fact, there were people that waved us across the street, let us cross. I don't know if it was because we were tourists or if people are able to move beyond that. As Christians, we believe that Jesus is the only way, but we show mutual respect to everybody. And I was just grateful to see people extending that same kindness to us while we were there. This is the Church of Annunciation in Nazareth. Now, one of the things that we realized is that if there was a significant event that happened in Scripture, then there was probably a church that was built somewhere on top of it or around it somewhere. It was my understanding that the church would either be Catholic or Armenian or Greek Orthodox. There may have been others, but one of those three seemed to be the prominent religions, Christian religions over there. I use the quotes around Christian, given some of their beliefs. But and in some of these places, 2 or even 3 of those share the same building. But this is the Church of the Annunciation. Now, we went down to the place below, and supposedly, this is where Gabriel announced to Mary that she would have a son, the long-awaited Messiah. The Bible tells us nowhere where that happened, and so this is purely speculation. So, yeah. I mean, honestly, if you look at Scripture, specifically if you look at the story of the bronze snake on the bronze pole in the book of Numbers, you realize that as the Israelites complained against God, God sent serpents. He sent poisonous snakes to bite them and to kill them. But then God told Moses, hey, put a bronze serpent, create a bronze serpent, put it on a bronze pole, and when the people look to that, then they will be healed. And that was a prototype of the cross, right? Because if you look in John chapter 3, I think it's verse 14 or 15, Jesus said, even as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. So that bronze serpent in the Old Testament was a picture of Jesus. It pointed to Jesus, that he would become sin for us to take our sin from us. But if you go back to the Old Testament, one of the things that we realize is later on, that bronze serpent had to be destroyed. I think it was called Nehushtan, and I can't remember what passage it was in, but it had to be destroyed and ground up because the people came to worship it. God knows that special instruments, special locations, special whatever, they can become that thing can become an object to worship if we're not careful. And so all of these are just speculation, and because God, I don't think, wanted us to know exactly where these events took place, because then we would set up things like this. And so, this was a neat thing to go to, but I wouldn't give 5 cents, to on a bet that this is where it happened, because it's just speculation. But I took pictures anyway. This is the closer look of what I was just aiming my camera at. I'm just telling you, part of my curiosity, I would have loved to have explored the stairs in the background and that see where they went to, but a metal gate did keep us from getting any closer, so I couldn't go in there. So much of Israel is rock and sand. From the church that we were just at, the Church of the Annunciation, we went down a valley and up another hill to look at what's called the Hill of Precipice, or the Cliff of Precipice. I can't remember what it was called. We'll see that in just a second. But I just wanted to take a picture of this as we got out of the bus and walked over to what I'm about to show you. Because in Genesis 13, Abraham and Lot, remember, they were mingling and it was causing problems with each other. And so Abraham said, Lot, go wherever you want to, and I'll go the other way so that we can separate, so that we can just get along as we separate. And so in Genesis 13:10, it says that Lot looked and saw the well-watered plains of Jordan. The Jordan Valley has all of that water, and it is lush and green. But you get up from the Jordan Valley, and you're looking generally at stuff like this, at rock and sand and just a little bit of vegetation. This is just what it looks like. The fact that Israelis are able to grow things on this land is nothing short of a miracle. It's absolutely amazing that they are able to grow crops here on stuff like this. Here is the place that we ended up. I'm looking back now at Nazareth. The Church of the Annunciation that we were in, you can't see it from here. It's in the middle of this picture, just surrounded by all of the buildings. But we came over to another place because our tour guide said that she wanted to take us to the Mount of Precipice. And this plaque was near where I took that last picture, where I was looking back toward Nazareth. And this plaque says that, essentially this is where they sought to push Jesus off the cliff in Nazareth. I absolutely am not sure and certain at all that that's where this happened. Let me read to you just a few verses. Luke chapter 4, verses 28 through 30. It says, when the people in Nazareth, when they heard Jesus and what he was saying, everyone in the synagogue was enraged. They got up, they drove Jesus out of town and brought him to the edge of the hill that their town was built on, intending to hurl him over the cliff. But he passed right through the crowd and went on his way. So that is a legitimate story told in Luke chapter 4, verses 28 through 30. But the cliff that they were wanting to hurl him over it says in verse 29, was on the edge of the hill that their town was built on. Well, just looking at the town, this is not the edge of the hill that the town is built on, unless the Nazareth of 2,000 years ago was on this hill. But anyway, this is the hill that is designated the Mount of Precipice. I took a video. It starts looking back at Nazareth, and then it just shows you this cliff. It's pretty impressive. The houses just go on and on and on. And the plaque is right there in the center. I'm not going to go over the side, but I did walk along this edge. That supposedly is the cliff over which they tried to throw Jesus. I just don't know, because Nazareth, at least presently, is not built on that hill. So I don't know that that's where it happened. So we went from Nazareth. You see the blue line in the middle. We went from Nazareth and we went a little north, and we didn't stop in Cana of Galilee. This is where Jesus performed the first miracle. We didn't stop in Cana, but I did take a picture as we were driving by. Cana Wedding Wine, the first miracle souvenir store. Believe it was supposed to be souvenir store, but I'm just telling you, there's just lots of places where you can buy things. This thing is wired for tourism. Because these people know that lots of people love to go to Israel to see all of these sites and experience the place where so much of the biblical events took place. Then we went from Cana, and you see the route that we took. I'm not sure which route we went on. I don't know if we went south or north, but we ended up in, you see over on the far right, the Mt Resort. That's where we ended up spending the night. And in fact, we would spend a couple of nights here in this place. This is the Mt Resort. We came here to this place. The picture that I took a little while ago, you'll see that in just a second. It's on the other side of this building. The Sea of Galilee is on the other side of this building. We were scheduled to get a small cabin. I'm sorry, we were scheduled to get a hotel, but I think that the hotel rooms were being renovated, and so they let us all have cabins. And so this cabin was Kim's and my place to stay while we were here by the Sea of Galilee. You can't see it. It's just, the lighting just didn't work on my camera, but I'm standing at the front door of our cabin on the deck out in front, and you see the vegetation because we're around Galilee, so there's lots of fresh water, and so there's lots of vegetation. But the center where you see all of the light, if I took the camera down and you just looked at it with your own eyes, you would see the beautiful Sea of Galilee right out there. And this is the last picture. This is the Sea of Galilee as we walked out of our cabin and walked to the back of the Mt Resort and where we stayed. It was just surreal. It was beautiful. So much of the Gospels stories took place on or near this body of water, the Sea of Galilee. And so over the next couple of days, I think it was the next, I know it was the next day, I think maybe it's the next couple of days, we explored this body of water. So I'm looking forward to letting you experience that.